Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is sponsored by Townsend Automotive Group in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This year, many of us are relearning to cherish things closer to home, and that goes for any trips away from it as well. Enter the road trip, perfect for a weekend getaway, a camp out as the weather cools, or, if you're like me, dinner reservations. The Townsend Auto Group began 48 years ago with the late Charles Townsend, who started selling cars in his hometown of Memphis in the early 50s. Later, he and his family moved to Alabama, and in 1972, he purchased the local Ford dealership, and soon other dealerships followed. Today, this company is still built on service and connection with its customers, and they want to remind you of the joys of a jaunt down the road. The staff can get you into a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV you'll love to drive. Of course, catching up on those Southern Fork podcasts as you go, and their service staff will keep you going. Townsend Automotive Group salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be a part of a community that does the same. Visit TownsendHonda.com, TownsendNissan.com, or TownsendAutomotiveDemopolis.com to learn more. Or, if you're in West Alabama, stop in at any of their 3 locations. Now, do you have a favorite frosting flavor? There's a famous quote from Julia Child where she says, "A party without cake is just a meeting." But for many Southerners, that saying goes for family too. Many families have a locally famous cake, from an aunt's cream cheese pound cake to a grandmother's applestack cake. For the Reutter family, that was Caroline's caramel cake, a labor of love and precision that is as decadent as it is time-consuming to make. Caroline started making them upon request, and soon Caroline's Cakes was born. The bakery, now with 30 cake flavors in all, has since gained national recognition, from Oprah's Favorite Things to features on Buzzfeed and the Food Network. Caroline passed away from cancer in 2017, but her son Richard still carries on the sweet tradition of his mom's baking business in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and it's a family affair. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Richard.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to chat with you. I don't have a slice of cake in front of me, but we're going to talk a lot about cake today. First, I have to say you're sitting in...
I'm in Spartanburg.
Okay. And I am sitting inside my little house in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're connected on an app right now. I would want nothing more than to drive up to Spartanburg and spend a day with you in the bakery, but alas, it is not meant to be. So I appreciate you talking with me this way today. And I'm excited to really get into this whole Caroline's Cakes discussion. So I've stood in line with a toothpick at many food festivals, and I think the last one was Seaweed, and you have these little tiny slices of caramel cake on a toothpick, and everybody's waiting in line. It's the caramel cake that got Caroline's Cakes started, right?
That's right. And I appreciate your past patience as you wait in those lines that tend to get larger and larger as those food and wine festivals and festivals like Seaweed go on. We do put out sample sheets that have about a sugar cube size sampling of our cake flavors. And I think it's just enough to get people hooked on what will quickly become the best caramel cake they've ever tried.
Yes, for sure. Now, Caroline was your mother.
That's correct. Yeah, Caroline was born in Charleston and grew up in Lake City, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And then lived some time in Annapolis and then came back to Spartanburg to really anchor the business back in South Carolina after getting it off the ground in Maryland. And because of who you are, you kind of helped launch the business, right? Tell us that story. The christening story, was it?
That's correct. I don't think I can take full credit, as I was obviously just a little baby, but the very first caramel cake was in fact served at my christening. And that was sort of the catalyst that started the conversation around this caramel cake. After it was served at the christening, Mom continued to have friends of hers reach out and ask for one. And she'd have 5 or 6 people here and 10 or 12 people there. And she would have them left sitting on the front porch, and people would come by the house and find the cake that had their name on it and pick it up and leave a check in what we called the big red tin, which is, those of you who have had our cakes before know that all of our cakes come in a big red tin now. And that's sort of how the business was run for years, just everything done on the honor system and coming to the house, and all the cakes would be set up on a joggling board on the front porch. And Mom loved doing it and was able to bake about 8 cakes a day in the home kitchen.
Wow. Well, I know that you have 30 flavors now, and we'll get into some of those. But for our listeners that really don't know that much about caramel cake, since I would say a Caroline Cakes caramel cake is really the standard bearer, unless it's Granny making it for how a caramel cake should look and taste. I want to talk a little bit about how tough it is. Like, I'm a baker and I am not going to make a caramel cake. So it's like the caramelization and doing the frosting, and yours is how many layers?
Ours is 7 layers.
7 layers, yes. And so what makes caramel cake so difficult? Even though she could make 8. I mean, it's not an easy task.
So I sort of think 6 layers isn't enough and 8's too many calories with the caramel cake. But caramel really is such a delicate icing. People who grew up with caramel know from their own experience or know from watching their parents or grandparents make caramel icing the extreme attention and care that particular recipe takes. It's not something that you can hurry along or cut corners on. And we have stuck with that practice as our business has grown. We're not going to cut any corners on our recipe. It is something that takes all day to make. And we take that very seriously because we know that one bite of this cake will bring back those memories that people had in the kitchen with their parents and grandparents. As you know, one of our taglines is the taste of tradition. And it's very true. This cake has become a part of so many birthday traditions and holiday traditions because in the busyness of our lives now, people don't have the time to sit and stir the caramel, but we do. You know, we get to do what we love because people still allow us to be part of their traditions.
Do you have to earn the caramel icing status in your bakery?
Yes. So I've worked in an official capacity. I started working with Mom when I graduated from college in 2004. I was not given the complete caramel recipe until 2012.
Wow.
And I'm family. So it is sort of, we used to joke that it was kind of like our Coca-Cola recipe, and that, the people who knew it should never travel together. And, but it's something we hold pretty dear. And it's not written down anywhere. And a lot of it's done by feel or look or smell even, to know that it's done right. And we don't always get it right, but when we misstep, we know we're responsible enough to get rid of that batch and only send out the best.
Yes. Well, and I remember, I think it was Gayle King fell in love with the caramel cake, and then Oprah said, yes, that's good, but I like coconut cake. And I definitely had the coconut cake on my mind also today when I was calling. And you have 30 other cakes. Do you have like a pink chiffon cake or pink champagne cake? Do you have
That's
that?
right. Pink champagne. And with Oprah's favorite, the coconut cake, I think that's another indicator of just the tradition and the memories that each of our cakes brings back. And that Oprah did say that our coconut cake reminded her of the coconut cake that she'd had from her childhood. And of course, extremely appreciative of Gayle finding and trying our cake and putting it in front of Oprah and her team.
Yeah, that's not a bad day.
The Oprah effect is very real. And our friends, Ray Ann and Adam Glassman there at O Magazine have been tremendous supporters of the business and of Mom. And we're very appreciative of them. But we do have a pink champagne cake, and it's one of the cakes that we came out with just in the past couple of years. And
I got a full slice of that. I got a full slice of that once at Atlanta Food and Wine, I think.
Yeah, we must have been feeling particularly generous there to give out full slices. Good for us.
Yes, yes. And I took a picture of it, I remember, and I put it on my Instagram stories, and I had a lot of interactions with that cake. So it has a chiffon sponge. I mean, we all know what sponges are now, sponge cakes based on the Great British Baking Show.
Yes.
Yes. We've learned a lot about cakes and stuff, but how many employees do you have in Spartanburg?
So our headquarters is now in Spartanburg. We no longer have an operation in Annapolis, Maryland, which is where the business was started, but we currently have 19 full-time employees. During the holiday season, we'll go up to about 40 or 50 team members. And that's the team in the phone bank, helping take orders. That's the team in the kitchen helping produce the cakes and the icings.
Oh, wow.
That's the team in shipping, which is our shipping department is run by my older brother, Charles. So that's kind of the packaging and getting it onto the truck. And next stop is your doorstep.
Wow. Wow. And do you ship them cold?
We do. We actually ship them frozen. In each of our cakes, you can freeze and refreeze for up to 6 months. So freezing
that's
the cakes
what we like to hear. That means
exactly.
I can enjoy a whole cake by myself.
Which is as much as we'd love it if people actually sat down and ate the whole cake themselves. We do realize that a cake, particularly the caramel cake, which is so rich, you just need a very thin slice. It's highly likely that you're not going to finish the whole cake at one meal. So it's nice to be able to wrap that in plastic and put it back into the freezer and then take it out as you need it and then repeat the process. And you can, again, freeze and refreeze for up to 6 months. So the cakes are shipped frozen on dry ice, and we ship anywhere in the country in 1 to 2 days. Sometimes during the holidays, that might turn to 3 days, but we do pack with extra dry ice to allow for that.
So that's something that you really kind of had to figure out along the way, how to ship. And I know that shipping has really changed food production in general in the United States. I spoke to a chef years ago, and he mentioned that his first job in the Midwest was transformed. His restaurant was transformed when FedEx started being able to overnight fish, seafood from, the East or the West Coast to the Midwest. And so there had to have been some trial and error for your mom back then. That's a big leap. Frozen cake, dry ice from front porch pickup, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a huge leap. And certainly anybody who knew Caroline, or I guess knows Caroline's Cakes knows that we rely heavily on our customers to be part of that trial and error process. And Mom transitioned from having friends of hers come and pick up cakes on the porch to the shipping really out of sheer luck. The phone rang at the house one day, and it was from a company called U.S. Trust, who I think is now owned by Bank of America. Mm-hmm. And they said, can we speak with Caroline? We've tried one of your cakes. We'd like to use them as a corporate customer, as a corporate gift this year. And Mom said, okay. And keep in mind, the output of the home kitchen was about 8 cakes a day. And she said, how many would you like? And they said 2,000. And she did not miss a beat. She said, okay, that sounds great.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So Mom very much was a find the problem, create the solution entrepreneur. And mm-hmm. we did everything we could to get that first order out. We put a commercial kitchen in the basement of my parents' home. Those cakes were packed in the garage and shipped, not on dry ice, but in a tin and in a box. And then as the business grew, once it got off the ground with that first initial order, we did realize the need for a cooler and some coolant in order to reach nationwide. A caramel cake is historically prominent in the South, mm-hmm. but we wanted to reach customers out west and in the Northeast as well, and really nationwide. And we needed to figure out how to do that. And I just followed Mom's lead. I mean, it was the hardest thing about this business was keeping up with Caroline. Her mind mm-hmm. was so active, always thinking about new projects and ways to improve the customer experience. And we ultimately landed on a cooler that she designed and patented that would allow the cake to rest on top of a block of dry ice and mm-hmm. still stay within the best possible dimensions for UPS shipping. And it's the cooler that we continue to use today.
Now, Caroline passed away in 2017, and you were already part of the business by then. So what you went to college for, I don't think it was probably cake business, right?
No, so I went to Hobart College in upstate New York, in Geneva, New York, mm-hmm. and loved my time there, loved my experience. I was a political science major and international relations minor, and was pretty well decided on applying to law school until about 2 nanoseconds after I had my degree in my hands. And I hadn't even left the stage at graduation. And I was like, I have no idea what I'd like to do. Wow. And I moved back home to Annapolis, and mm-hmm. I was managing a restaurant where I'd worked for years through my boarding school years and college years, bussing tables and working in the kitchen. And I was managing that restaurant. Mom approached me, and she said at this point, she had moved out of the basement of the house into a small storefront before the Bay Bridge in Annapolis. She said, the business is growing. I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I think with the typical arrogance of a recent college graduate, I was thinking executive title, and this is great. I'm good. And I said, well, am I
nepotism?
Exactly. I said, what's my title going to be? What's my role? She said, well, you're going to start off washing dishes, because each of those 7 layers is baked in an individual pan. And we've got lots of pans that need washing, and you're going to learn the business from the back of the house to the front. And it was the best lesson I have ever been taught, because it's so important in running a small business that you don't have those single point failures. And I think if she had not introduced me to the bakery in an official capacity in that washroom, then I don't think that I'd appreciate the journey nearly as much. Mm-hmm. I mean, I find every part of this business to be extremely fun, whether that's making the caramel icing, washing the pans, or shipping the cakes, or answering the phone and talking to customers. I appreciate every single aspect of this business. And I know that started with the first professional lesson that she taught me. So mm-hmm. went to school with the thoughts of law school, came out and started my professional career with a hands-on business experience started by washing dishes. And then eventually got my MBA from Wake Forest and brought a lot of those classroom learnings back and applied them to the business as well.
Well, it's definitely exploded. So Spartanburg is still a small town. I was there a few years ago. And so you're probably, seasonally got to be some of the biggest
employer in the city, right? I mean, seasonally, at least when it comes to food and beverage businesses. Do you find that things have changed as far as sourcing and buying power as your business has grown, like from a business sense of things?
Absolutely. I mean, we rely heavily on the relationships that we've built with our different providers. And over the years, we have grown to the point where we're getting some of our ingredients, specifically sugar and butter, in much larger quantities than we used to. You know, we used to go around to different Costco's and Sam's Clubs because they had the best prices on butter. So the morning would be spent kind of with a quick internet search of what the price was, and then I'd hop in the car and go down and clean them out, and you'd get a lot of strange looks from people, but I'd figure
a car full of butter.
You're supposed to buy in bulk at those stores, so that's what we were doing. And we'd come back with hundreds and hundreds of pounds of butter. Now we're to the point where we are able to source directly from most of our providers. As far as being an employer, we're thrilled with the number of team members that we're able to bring on, and we've added to that each and every year. Here in Spartanburg, we're also around Amazon fulfillment, and UPS and FedEx have major operations here as well, which is part of the big draw to Spartanburg, outside of the fact that it is such a supportive community. So the move to Spartanburg not only got Mom back to her home state of South Carolina, but it was just so warm and welcoming and supportive to Caroline's Cakes and what we were trying to accomplish. It's really been incredible since we moved down here in 2012.
I remember when I baked biscuits for Callie's Biscuits way back in the day when it was just beginning, away from their home kitchen into their first little storefront. I would still eat biscuits. And I was wondering, do you still eat cake?
I think it's part of the burden of the job. I do. I eat Callie's Biscuits. I'm a huge fan, big admirer of everything that she's accomplished. And I haven't actually met her, but we again go to the Charleston Wine and Food Festival and are frequent visitors to her stores when we have the opportunity. Yes, I do still eat cake in a limited capacity. I don't think, regardless of the number of footsteps that I accumulate walking around the bakery, if I was testing cake flavors on a regular basis, it'd be difficult to keep the weight in check. But everything in moderation. I need to make sure that what we're sending out to our customers is the best. And
it's hard. It's hard. So somebody's got to do it. The frostings are really, we've kind of like talked about the frosting, caramel cake frosting, and the coconut cake, and the fresh shaved coconut. And then, of course, the pink champagne are the insides of the cakes the same, or do you have, obviously if it's chocolate, you have a different cake, but the base of it, the actual cake batters are different?
So the cake layers for the caramel and the coconut are the same. That's our yellow cake base. The caramel, of course, is that iconic 7 layers. We do make our coconut cake in a 4-layer version and a 7-layer version. So the buttercream icing is what we use on the pink champagne cake. And the pink champagne, the cake portion is actually a white cake base.
Yes, I like a white cake. Now, I love vintage recipes, and I think about all of these classic recipes that you're reviving or keeping classic and doing this the old-fashioned way. As Caroline's Cakes has added recipes over the years, were all of those recipes your mom's, or did you do research as you added like that pink champagne cake?
So a combination of both. Many of the recipes were Caroline's, were Mom's. She has an extensive library of cookbooks and newspaper clippings and articles that she saved and that customers have sent to her, because they really do view Caroline's Cakes as a keeper of these recipes, and out of a concern for not wanting to have them forgotten, we have many customers who will send them to us knowing that we will take care of them and honor the traditions that are associated with them. the pink champagne cake we made after Mom passed. I was flipping through the cookbooks, as I often do. And Mom has so many pages dog-eared or bookmarked. It's almost like I was able to work on another project with her when I came across the pink champagne cake recipe. Mm-hmm. And it's not just one. Our process is we will find the recipe and then make a number of different test recipes and pick the best parts of each of those recipes and then sort of Caroline's cakeify it, meaning we want, we have our vanilla, our real European buttercream icing, which we have tested and know meshes so well with our other icings that I'd like to be able to apply that to the pink champagne. So that's what we paired it with. But we do have a lot of customers reach out. Our Montana Gold cake, for example, which is 4 layers of chocolate cake with caramel icing. That was not something that we had thought of before Mom had a phone call with a customer who said that it was a cake that they grew up with and would Mom be willing to try and make one? And of course, and any time spent in the kitchen is fun time. So Mom got back in the kitchen and combined those flavors and sent it to the customer and waited for their feedback. Our customers are going to tell us the job we're doing. And again, we don't get to do that job unless we keep our customer happy. And that's something we take seriously. So we rely heavily on them for their feedback. And then I continue to and feel that I will always continue to rely heavily on Mom and the legacy she left behind for the future of this company, whether it's in the team members that we look forward to bring on board or if it's the recipes we want to add.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty special to be surrounded by, number one, cake, family, and then also people that are happy because they're ordering cake, right? And
that's right.
So it's got to be a different life than you probably imagined, but it's probably better than going into politics, right?
So certainly in today's world, I mean, we're cake people. We're eat cake, be happy is something that's posted just about everywhere you look, all over the bakery. And I think it's a great way to remind our team members that what we're able to do and the work we're doing is fun. I mean, ultimately we're celebrating birthdays. We're celebrating family get-togethers. In some cases, we're celebrating, people who can't be together, especially in today's world with the coronavirus. People are still having birthdays. People are still getting married, and people still want to be celebrated. And because we can ship nationwide, we can be part of those celebrations. And it's not lost on us how lucky we are and how special this is, and we're very appreciative of that.
That's really great. Well, what is making you hungry? I mean, you've brought your MBA back into this business. It's, really stable and expanding, and you have 30 flavors. What's making you hungry, Richard?
Well, I mean, I think continuing the mission that Mom started and the vision that her and I shared for this business is what keeps me hungry every day. I mean, I think realizing our full potential as a mail order bakery and protecting that specialness of being a part of so many traditions and making so many friends through this business, whether it's at the Charleston Food and Wine or Seawee or at Martha's Market in Charlottesville, speaking face to face with customers, or if it's answering the phone and hearing how some of our customers have been doing since the last time we spoke. That definitely keeps me hungry for what we're doing and having the absolute best time. I mean, we've said it a number of times throughout this conversation that I eat cake.
Yeah.
That's what could be better than that?
Yes. Well, and just to pause for a second here, I want to also, everyone that's listening, I got to know your work through these food festivals, and it isn't, people often ask me, is it worth it to go? Well, it is for me as a freelance, multimedia journalist. I can get in front of a lot of people without having to travel to Spartanburg to see you. I can try your food, I can interact with you and get to know you. And I've done it through the years. And I remember standing in line at Seawee and thinking, I'm not going to stand in line for this toothpick of cake again. I'm going to get a cake. I was like, I want to know more about this, because every time I'm like, well, I have to beeline for the cake,
and then you can spot the seasoned show attendees, because they'll do what I call a cake kebab, and they'll skewer a couple different pieces on the same toothpick, and that way. And again, the reason that we do those small samplings is so that people get an opportunity to try all the flavors that we have. If we were cutting even thin slivers as you just need for the caramel, I don't think people would have an opportunity to find out that we have a really excellent Southern chocolate cake with chocolate fudge and ganache.
I've never tried that. Yeah, I've just been hitting the caramel cake and the coconut. And obviously, I was at a special event at Atlanta Food and Wine. So it was a closed event. It wasn't in the tents. So that's how I got that whole slice of pink champagne cake. But what is one aspect of this job meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality?
I like to think I'm a pretty outgoing person. And
you are on a sugar high. That's why.
That's exactly a steady diet of sugar. Even with the rise of e-commerce, we still do hear from a lot of our customers over the phone and over email. And I think having the opportunity to answer the phone and interact with those customers one-on-one is really gratifying and a lot of fun for me. It sort of brings me back to my early years at Caroline's Cakes. After I was washing dishes, we did have a storefront deli, and it was an open kitchen concept. So I'd be behind the counter taking the orders and making food, and having that direct interaction with customers was really great, because you get to see firsthand their experience with your product. You'd see people's immediate reaction when they tasted that caramel, and they, before they even said, this tastes just like my grandmother's, you knew that it tasted just like their grandmother's.
And it is a visceral experience when you taste something that feels like it might have been lost.
Right. Absolutely. And it hasn't been lost, because we have it here at Caroline's Cakes. And I think the opportunity to interact with people who I wouldn't call them strangers. I just say people I'm getting to know through this business is something that meshes really well with my personality.
Love it. I feel that way about my work too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just getting to know people. What keeps you up at night?
Ooh, the next cake order. I think we are, again, very, very lucky to be able to do what we do. It's not lost on me that we're a want, not a need product. I think people need cakes, but the reality is there's a lot of fantastic companies that make really great cakes. I think that we make the best, but I should think that, and I do think that. But it really, especially during the difficult times that we're in, the business and the environment is so fragile. There's so much going on outside of the business. And I just want to protect this little bubble that we have, because I like to think that it gives so much happiness to people all over. And I think the seriousness and the severity of protecting that bubble so that we can continue to provide for our customers certainly keeps me up at night. And then if I have stress or feel pressure about it, I get to walk in the doors of the bakery every morning and bake cakes and kind of calm my nerves a little bit, and realize that my brother's back there sending out cakes as fast as he can, and our kitchen manager is baking as fast as they can, and the team we have in the phone bank is laughing on the phone with our customers, and everything kind of settles. And I realize that everything is good. We're in a great place. We're doing great, fun work.
Well, my magic power is not being able to make a caramel cake, but it is being able to time travel with my magic picnic basket. So I am able to go back in time. I'm able to source things. I'm able to conscript anybody to make anything that you would like to eat. So what kind of a meal would I bring you that you would really enjoy?
Oh, wow. I think I'll say a meal and a meal experience, because we used to always have at it was kind of an open door policy at my parents' house during the Christmas holiday, and that, whoever was in town, we'd make a seat at the table for them. And the meal that we would always do a standing rib roast, and we'd do a Yorkshire pudding. And then, of course, everybody would bring sides, or we would always finish the meal with one of our cakes. And the caramel was always a staple, but we also had our Sinfully chocolate cake with a scoop of Grater's peppermint ice cream. So that would be kind of an ideal meal, because it always meant that we made it through another holiday season. Mm-hmm. And as tired as we were, that we were still able to raise a glass and laugh with friends. And the meal experiences, in order to have a seat at the table, you always had to come with a song, a joke, or a poem, and we would go around the table and everybody would get an opportunity to share that. And that was always a lot of fun. People would really get into it. We'd have semi-elaborate song and dance numbers and some borderline questionable humor, but it was all in good fun. And again, it was a great way to cap off a busy holiday season. Thinking about that my family was doing the same thing that so many of our customers' families were doing, which was enjoying each other's company around the dining room table while also sharing a piece of Caroline's cakes.
Oh, I love that. And I like a standing rib roast too, so I'll bring a joke, okay?
Okay, perfect.
So if people want to learn more about Caroline's cakes up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, you can go, as always, to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as well as images, so you can see the cakes and the faces behind this voice. If you like what you hear, oh man, I just rounded the corner on 200 episodes and I am not even tired, probably because I'm on a sugar high too. Please, the easiest way to make sure that you don't miss any of the culinary conversations that I work to showcase what a full, rounded, and diverse South, you can subscribe and make sure that you let others know so that they can learn about caramel cake. Bet you didn't realize that you needed to know about that before today, but you do. Thank you so much for joining me today, Richard.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I'll see you in Spartanburg soon, and I'll don my hairnet and wash some dishes. I know how to get in there and do it.
And bring a joke.
I'll bring a joke.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. I sincerely cannot believe that I'm about to tell you one of my baking secrets. You've just listened to a whole episode where we talk a lot about cake, and I mentioned that I'm a baker. And I've kept this secret to myself for a long time because it was kind of my ace in the hole. But I'm really feeling guilty about it now. I want to share this so more people can have success in the kitchen. So here it goes. Years ago, when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, I actually volunteered at some historic properties. And yes, Charlotte does have a few historic properties. You have to really look to find them beyond the shiny buildings, but they're there. Charlotte's been a city since before the American Revolution. But I digress. These historic properties, often we would host a club who like to practice open hearth cooking. So if you've ever been to any historic property that has live interpretation, then often you will see open hearth cooking from a cooking interpreter. These are the men and women who dress up in the period dress. It's usually super hot when they're doing this. I don't know why. I always think about like, wow, they're wearing a wool waistcoat. One of them told me this tip that I have taken with me ever since. She said, when I let the children practice with me, we always crack eggs for the cake that I'm going to bake in the Dutch oven over open coals. And I said, well, but then they might crack too many, because I'm always super thrifty. And she said, it doesn't matter. And I said, what? And she said egg sizes vary, even though they're very much more standardized today in the grocery store than they used to be. They're sorted by sizes, but not all large eggs are the same as you go across the brand. And then, of course, you have your medium eggs and then your extra large. So she says, I just let them crack, always crack at least one more or two if it's small, if I have small eggs, and then just make that into the batter. Y'all, from that day forward, every cake I've baked since, for money, professionally, for a bar who needed cakes for brunch, to friends, to family gatherings, I have added one more egg than the recipe calls for. Eggs provide, of course, more fat and richness, so it's going to make your batter a little runnier, depending. But also, conversely, it will make it a little lighter, richer and lighter, because eggs offer lift. That's why you whip them. So that's my tip. Try it. I know it seems crazy to add an extra egg, especially for those of you out there who do not like improvising in a recipe. Frankly, that's not me. But baking is usually about precision, so all you pastry chefs listening to me out there, I'm so sorry. I know this is against the baking and pastry rules, but it's always worked for me in the home kitchen. So there you go. I just have firsthand knowledge of it. I can't prove any reason why, but I'm not going to stop doing it. So then I throw those eggshells in my compost. So anyway, enjoy baking, and I'll talk to you on the flip side.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?